welcome to the Prophecy Club. We just stopped, and we didn't want to stop from the last broadcast, so we're going to pick it up from there. I'm going to give these guys just as much time as possible. I just need to tell you that they are going to be speaking this weekend, Saturday evening, January 4, from 7 to 10:30, and then Sunday morning from 9:30 to noon at the Spirit of Prophecy Church Prophecy Club, 2540 K Avenue in Plano. That's on the corner of Park and K. Just remember Park K, like the margarine, right behind the Whataburger. Plano, Park A, right behind the Whataburger. Saturday evening and Sunday morning, January 4 and 5. That's this weekend, guys. Don't miss them. 2 prophecy speakers, platform speaking all at once. Well, maybe not exactly at once, but you're on the platform. Anyway, Doug Krieger and Dean McGriff, continue with your timeline.
We were talking, Stan, prior to this time, that there are 12 sets of 490 Jubilee epic periods of time during the last 9,000 years, with the last 120 years standing alone towards the end of days. And that period of time we calculated between 1906 AD to 2025 AD as the end of the 6,000-year time frame, meaning that the first 5,880 years starts at the creation of Adam through Messiah the Prince up to 1905 AD. That's very interesting. That's the 12 epic 490-year time frames, which are equal to 5,880 years, or 5 plus 8 plus 8, if you take the digits by themselves, would equal 21. If you take the 120 years, you have 12. 21 and 12 is equal to 33, which is Messiah's age at his crucifixion and resurrection. If you multiply 21 times 12, you're going to get 252, which is an interesting number set because 25.20 inches or 2.1 feet, which is the same thing as saying 25.20 inches, is equal to what we believe is the Bible's sacred cubit. Not an Egyptian royal cubit of 21.6 inches, but the sacred cubit, which was used in the Noah's Ark all the way through the Old Testament with all of the tabernacles and the temples and Ezekiel's temple, even into the New Testament and the 144-cubit wall of the New Jerusalem. So these numbers are not just thrown out there, but from 3,975 BC, the creation of Adam, to 2025 AD, which we have guesstimated, if you would, as the return of Messiah, 6,000 years. Or, in the first time frame up through Shem, there were 31 Jubilee long cycles of 50 years. From Shem's birth to Messiah's crucifixion, there were, and resurrection, 49, interestingly enough, Jubilee long cycles of 50 years each. And the final set will be 40 more. And so these add up to 120 Jubilee long cycles. 31 plus 49 plus 40 is equal to 120. So these dates really begin to have some amazing interest. I don't know if you've heard about Rabbi Judah ben Samuel's prophecy, known as Judah the Pious, concerning Jerusalem, that was given circa about 1217 A.D., the possible coming of Messiah.
No, hadn't heard that.
Well, this is something. This was forecasted way back there in the 13th century. He predicted, Judah the Pious predicted in 1217 that the Ottoman Turks would rule over Jerusalem. The Turkish people would rule over Jerusalem in about 300 years, which was 1517. They did. He predicted at that point there would be 10 Jubilee long cycles, a total of 500 years, and they would be broke. It was very specific. I mean, this goes beyond a Nostradamus. This guy was why God gave this to him. I believe God did give this to him. He predicted that there would be 8 50-year jubilees under Turkish rule. And at his time, there were these Turks. They hadn't the Ottoman power yet. But then when they extended to Jerusalem, they did so for a 400-year time frame, which he predicted 8 50-year jubilees. 8 times 50, 400 years. It was in 1917 that General Allenby of the British marched into Jerusalem, got off his horse, walked through the Damascus gate, walked through the gate in 1917, concluding the 400-year reign of the Turks. So now it became the British control of Jerusalem. And then he said there would be one 50-year jubilee in which there would be a no man's land. That ended in 1967 during the Six-Day War when the Jews took control all of Jerusalem. Then he said there would be one more 50-year Jubilee cycle. That would be the 10th Jubilee cycle. And they would be under Israeli control until the end of days. Stan, you know when his prophecy ended was exactly, are you ready for this? The 10 Jubilee cycle ended at the close of 2017 or the beginning of 2018 because we affirm that the commencement of the 70th week will be on a Passover. And so that the last 7 years will be the time frame of Daniel's 70th week. Now that prophecy given all the way back to 1217 A.D. by Rabbi Judah ben Samuel is probably one of the most incredible prophetic statements that was directly given. And somebody would say, well, that's extra biblical. I'm just saying, isn't it very interesting that those dates coincide with the Turkish Ottoman rule over Jerusalem up through General Allenby's marching into and taking over from the Turks in 1917, another 50 years of a no man's land, and then in 1967, Israel takes Jerusalem, and then you have another 50 years, which is the final and 10th Jubilee cycle, long cycle of 50 years, and boom, you're at the commencement of the 70th week. So, I mean, hey, is that not to me, that is a major, major witness. And that God would speak directly to his ancient people in such a way is pretty remarkable. And so the prophecy regarding Jerusalem and regarding the end of days, I believe, was given to the Hebrew people directly. And his prophecy has stood the test of time. The question being, are we going to be right about 2017, 2018? Now, folks, if we are that close, and Stan, we're talking now, we're going into the year 2014 now.
Okay.
14, 15, 16. Hey, 4 more years and maybe 3 months, and we're there.
Wow.
That's pretty heavy. And I'm just saying, here is this obscure rabbi. Now, he was very revered, and that's why he was known as Judah the Pious, because he lived a very devotional life, and for what he saw, he was centered on Messiah and the coming of Messiah. And it was directly connected to Israel and to Jerusalem. Now, can you believe this? This is such a fascinating discovery that there would be such a precise prediction. And so you have these 4,008 years, approximately 2,000 years from Adam to Abraham, and then from Abraham to Jesus, another 2,000, and then the final 2,000. So this is where we are in this mix.
Well, in my opinion, I see the fall of America someplace in the ballpark of 2020 or shortly thereafter, and that could line up with some of the things you're saying there, right?
Well, yeah.
What are you
Dan,
saying?
and not only that,
I mean, we're real close. We're
brother
splitting hairs here.
A couple of days ago, and I used your interpretation, which I find very fascinating. The phraseology of Babylon is fallen. Why does it mention it twice? Is that just a Greek Hebrew expression of confirmation, or does it have any kind of connotation that there may be an economic collapse first and then a total political destruction later? The possibility of there being a shakeup of the whole world order, therefore, and thereby creating a whole new world order in substance, not just in theory, but in actuality. Then you look, to the 70th week of Daniel, and it appears that the Antichrist, who now becomes the beast in the midst of the 70th week, and begins his reign of terror, and it's very clear in the Revelation. You've got 42 months of the beast's reign of terror. You got 42 months by the trampling asunder of the court of the Gentiles on the Temple Mount. That means what? Who's the holy city here? Who are the two witnesses? They say they're the two olive trees. Duh.
Okay, let's come back to the two witnesses. However, let me throw another. What about St. Malachi and his prophecies, where he is basically saying that this current pope is the false prophet?
Yes, that, and of course, you've got Tom Horn's thesis on this, and I have for almost a decade. Both Dean and I have talked about the tyranny of tolerance. Now, hey, we saw some of this with the Robertson thing just recently on this the Duck Dynasty program, right? He came out and said what he did and quoted the Bible, and I think this is still ongoing. By the way, they're back on again, from what I understand. I mean, I don't watch the series,
I don't
but
either,
I find it interesting that the hate speak that they accused him of was simply him quoting from the Bible. They asked him, what do you think sin is? And he started pointing it out, and from the Bible. Well, they said right away, that's hate speak. And so what is the tyranny of tolerance? Hey, can't we all just get along? And by the way, if you can't get along, we may have to deal with you. If you don't have anything good to say, and you want to quote Romans 1 on me, then, maybe you've crossed the line. What we're seeing here today is a religion. Unfortunately, Pope Francis seems to have embraced this kind of thinking where even an atheist, if he's following his conscience, just like Oprah Winfrey said, just follow your heart. Of course, the bottom line there is the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked above all things. Who can know it?
Amen.
So
Amen.
Follow your little heart and your... Hey, by the way, the last group that followed their conscience got killed by the flood.
Well, and the Bible says that there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof is destruction.
That's it. Amen.
Okay, so if we follow our heart, we're going to hell. I mean, let's just call it what it is here. Okay, now back to the timelines. All right, so St. Malachi is basically saying that this particular pope is the false prophet. That does kind of say that we're real close here. We also are approaching 40 years since God spoke the judgment over America, which is in 2020. That'll be 40 years from when he spoke it. So I don't want to believe that the tribulation is starting in 2018, but I mean, I have to say you guys do have some good reasons for what you're saying.
Well, not only that, Stan, there are, we've talked about the tetrads, the three tetrads, appearing in 1948, 49, appearing again in 1967, of course, and that's the city. And the third one, appearing in 2014, 2015, all three of these tetrads are highlighting something's going on in Israel on a Passover and on the Feast of Tabernacles, on Sukkot. And those two things are the treaty of death and hell and death, at the commencement on a Passover by the Antichrist, between the Antichrist, the false Messiah, and Israel. And then when he becomes the beast in the middle of the week is on the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, the commencement of 2018, Stan, you've got 3 very specific triad blood moons that appear on the earth. Okay, 3 of them. We're not talking about the tetrads now. We're talking about 3 distinct. One appears in 2017, January 31. The next is in July the 27th in 2018, and again on January the 21st, 2019. Then at the end of the 70th week that we're stating here is another triad series of blood moons, the first appearing on March the 14th, 2025, September the 7th, 2025, and then another one on March the 3rd, 2026. Each of these fall on a very